The rain hammered down like bullets on the colony streets. Carter pulled his coat tighter and ran toward the medical clinic, boots splashing through puddles of oil and water. That's when he saw her. A woman lay crumpled in the alley, blood pooling beneath her in the dim light. He didn't hesitate. Carter knelt beside her, checking for a pulse. It was there, faint but steady. Burn marks covered her arms, and a deep gash ran across her ribs. He lifted her carefully and carried her through the storm to his clinic. Inside, Carter laid her on the exam table and got to work. He cleaned the wounds, stitched the gash, and wrapped her burns in sterile bandages. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. Whoever she was, she'd been through hell. He noticed strange scars along her shoulders, precise and deliberate, like marks from some kind of ritual or rank. Her physiology seemed off too. Stronger bone density, unusual muscle structure, not fully human, or at least not anymore. Carter pushed the questions aside and focused on keeping her alive. Outside, he heard engines rumbling and voices shouting. Armed soldiers were searching the streets. He dimmed the lights and locked the door. Hours passed. The woman remained unconscious while Carter kept watch. He'd treated refugees before. People running from wars and debts and mistakes. He never asked questions. Everyone deserved a chance to survive. When dawn broke, the soldiers were gone, but the tension in the air remained. Carter checked her vitals again. Stable. He sat back in his chair and waited. Her eyes opened suddenly, sharp and alert. She scanned the room like a predator assessing danger, then locked on to Carter. He raised his hand slowly. "You're safe," he said. "You were hurt." "I brought you here." She tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. Carter moved to help, but she waved him off. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice rough. "Carter. I'm a medic. This is my clinic." She studied him for a long moment, suspicion etched into every line of her face. "Why did you help me?" He shrugged. "Because you needed it." The answer seemed to confuse her more than reassure her. She gave him a name, Lyra, though Carter suspected it was a lie. She refused to explain her injuries or where she'd come from. He didn't press. Instead, he brought her water and food, checking her bandages while she ate in silence. "You should rest," he said. "Those wounds need time to heal." Lyra shook her head. "I can't stay long. They're looking for me." Carter glanced toward the window. "The soldiers?" She nodded. "They won't stop." He should have been afraid. Instead, he felt a strange determination settle over him. "Then we'll make sure they don't find you." Over the next 2 days, Carter hid Lyra in a storage room whenever patrols passed by. He lied to soldiers who burst into his clinic, claiming he'd seen nothing. They threatened him, but he didn't break. Lyra watched from the shadows, her expression unreadable. Between the danger, she observed Carter treating the colonies poor and desperate. He charged nothing, turned no one away, and worked himself to exhaustion for people who had nothing to give. She'd never seen anything like it. In her world, power was currency, and compassion was weakness. "Why do you do this?" she asked one night after he'd finished stitching up a child's arm. Carter cleaned his instruments, not looking up. "Because someone has to." Lyra frowned. "They can't pay you. They offer you nothing." "They offer me their trust. That's worth more than credits." She wanted to argue, but the words caught in her throat. Something about this man unsettled her, not because he was dangerous, but because he wasn't. He was soft in a universe that demanded hardness, and yet he survived. On the 3rd day, everything changed. The sky turned dark with warships descending through the clouds. Alarms blared across the colony as alien cruisers surrounded the settlement. Carter rushed to the window and saw soldiers pouring into the streets more than before, organized and ruthless. Lyra stood behind him, her face pale. "They found me," she whispered. A broadcast echoed through every speaker in the colony, a deep voice demanding the woman be surrendered immediately. The entire sector was on lockdown, no ships in or out. Carter turned to Lyra. "Who are you really?" She hesitated, then the truth spilled out in fragments. She was being hunted, betrayed by people she'd trusted, wounded in an assassination attempt, but she wouldn't say why. Carter grabbed her arm gently. "I can help you escape. There's a transport bay on the east side." Lyra shook her head. "They'll kill you for hiding me." He smiled grimly. "They'll have to catch me first." Despite everything, despite the danger closing in, Carter began gathering supplies. Lyra watched him, something shifting inside her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. They planned through the night, mapping routes and timing patrols. Carter noticed Lyra's hands trembling as she worked. She was afraid, truly afraid, and trying to hide it. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get through this." She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "You don't know what you're risking," he nodded. "I know enough." For the first time, Lyra felt the weight of her choices pressing down. This man was willing to die for a stranger while she'd spent years commanding others to kill without question. Before they could move, the entire colony shook. A massive flagship descended, blotting out the sun. The broadcast changed. A new voice, cold and triumphant, filled the air. "Citizens of this colony, you harbor a criminal. Surrender. Empress Kalara, the Blood Sovereign, conqueror of 40 systems, and you will be spared." Carter's blood turned to ice. He spun toward Lyra. "No, Kalara." Her face was stone, but her eyes betrayed her shame. "That's your true identity," he said quietly. She nodded. "I tried to tell you." The broadcast continued, listing her crimes. Entire civilizations brought to their knees. Millions dead under her rule. The galaxy's most feared tyrant, now fleeing her own crumbling empire. Carter's neighbors gathered outside the clinic, shouting for him to turn her over. He could hear their anger, their fear. They'd trusted him, and now he'd brought death to their doorstep. Kalara stepped toward the door. "I'll go. You've done enough." Carter blocked her path. "No." She stared at him in disbelief. "You know what I am, what I've done." He met her gaze. "I know you're hurt and afraid. That's all that matters right now." Kalara felt something break inside her. This human, this fragile, compassionate fool was defending a monster. She wanted to push past him to save him from his own kindness, but she couldn't move. "Why?" she whispered. Carter's voice was firm. "Because everyone deserves a second chance, even you." The words hit her harder than any weapon. She'd spent decades believing strength meant crushing mercy, that compassion was a disease to be eradicated. But here stood a man who embodied everything she'd destroyed, and he refused to abandon her. The warlord's voice returned, offering Carter a choice. Surrender Kalara and receive wealth beyond imagination, a new life on any world he chose, safety for his colony, or refuse and watch everyone burn. The crowd outside grew louder, demanding Carter comply. He looked at Kalara, then walked to the window. "I'm not giving her up," he shouted. The crowd erupted in fury. Rocks shattered the clinic windows. Kalara grabbed his arm. "You'll die for nothing." Carter shook his head. "Not for nothing. For what's right." Kalara made her decision. If this human could face death without flinching, then she would too. But not as a victim. She straightened, and Carter saw the Empress emerge. "I won't run anymore," she said. "I'll fight." Carter smiled. "Then we fight together." They barricaded the clinic, using medical equipment and furniture to fortify the doors. Carter had a plasma cutter and an old energy pistol. Kalara's strength was returning, and she was still deadly, even wounded. The warlord's soldiers advanced, and the battle began. The clinic became a fortress. Carter and Kalara worked in perfect sync, him covering the windows while she rigged traps from surgical tools and chemical compounds. The first wave of soldiers breached the door and met with fire and fury. Carter's shots were precise, learned from years patching up fighters and knowing exactly where to aim. Kalara moved like a shadow, every motion calculated and lethal. They fought for hours, exhaustion creeping in, supplies dwindling. The warlord's voice mocked them over the speakers. Surrender was inevitable. Then the sky split open. A fleet of warships tore through the atmosphere, bearing the crimson insignia of the Imperial Guard. Kalara's loyal forces had found her. The warlord's flagship tried to flee, but was torn apart by focused fire. Explosions lit up the sky as the tide turned. Kalara stepped outside, blood on her face, bandages torn but standing tall. Her soldiers knelt as she approached. The Empress had returned. Carter watched from the doorway as Kalara addressed her fleet. She gave orders with absolute authority, commanding the rescue of the colony and the capture of the remaining enemy forces. But something was different. She spared the warlord's surrendering troops, ordering them treated with dignity. She compensated the colonists for damages and offered protection instead of conquest. Carter saw the change in her, the seed he'd planted growing into something real. Kalara returned to him as her forces secured the area. "You changed everything," she said quietly. Carter shook his head. "You changed yourself. I just reminded you it was possible." She smiled, a genuine expression he'd never seen before. "Come with me. I can make you the wealthiest man in the galaxy. Chief Medical Officer of the Imperial Fleet. Anything you want." Carter considered it, then looked back at his small, battered clinic. "I appreciate it, but my place is here. These people need me." Kalara felt the rejection like a physical blow, but she understood. This man belonged to no empire, answered to no throne. His strength came from exactly that freedom. "Then I'll leave you with this," she said. "I will rebuild my empire on the principles you showed me, mercy where possible, compassion as strength. You won't see me again, but you'll see my work." Carter extended his hand. "That's all I could ask for." She shook it, her grip firm. "Thank you, Carter, for everything." As her ship lifted into orbit, Kalara looked down at the tiny clinic growing smaller below. A human medic had defeated the galaxy's most terrifying empress without firing a shot, simply by refusing to abandon his principles. She'd conquered 40 systems through fear and violence, but this one man had conquered her with nothing but bandages and kindness. The Empire would change because of him. She would make sure of it, and though they'd never meet again, Carter's lesson would echo through every decision she made. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from weapons, but from the simple act of choosing to care. The colony rebuilt. Carter returned to his work, treating the sick and wounded without judgment or payment. Word spread of the human who'd stood against an empress and a warlord and survived. But Carter never sought fame. He just kept doing what he'd always done, helping those who needed it most. And somewhere among the stars, an empire slowly transformed, guided by the memory of a medic who proved that even the hardest heart could be softened by one act of unconditional compassion.